All right, welcome to the May meeting for the Historic District Board of Review. Brooke, you want to do roll call for us, please?
Yes. Josh Wilbur,
Here?
Jerome Vernon, Thomas Stark. Here. Owen McCollum,
Here.
Mike Pittman,
Here.
Sandy Palmer,
Here.
and Carol Ann Rogers.
Here.
All right, with that, did everyone receive last month's meeting notes? Everyone have a chance to review, and are there any corrections, edits? Hearing none, accept a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Brooke?
Carol Ann Rogers. We're voting to approve the minutes from last month. Approve.
Yes, I approve.
There you
Sorry.
You're fine.
Sandy Palmer,
Approved.
Mike Pittman,
Approve.
Owen McCollum,
go. Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve.
and Josh Wilbur.
Approved. All right, we will now go to our applications. We have 5 applications on for the night. Just so everyone knows the process for this, I'll say the address of the application, and then the person or persons who are representing the application, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. At that point in time, Brooke will go over a summary of the application, then give a chance for the applicant or the people representing the application to add to that if they would like. Then the board will ask any questions or state any concerns that they have with the application. Then we'll give a chance for the audience to speak to their concerns or any issues they might have for or against the application. And then at that point in time, the board will then go through a findings of fact, and then we will vote on the application on whether or not it will receive a certificate of appropriateness or not, or a COA, as you'll probably hear during the course of the meeting. So with that, we will start with the first application at 321 Jefferson Street. And our applicant probably not here. Or he is, okay. Okay. Come on up to the podium.
Perfect timing.
That was great timing. You can't get better than that. If you would state your name and address.
Joe Breek, 321 Jefferson Street.
All right, thank you, Joe.
This building is an 1835 commercial contributing zone central business district. The COA request is to install a wood accessory building, approximately 13 foot 7 inches by 24 foot 1 inch, with a metal roof behind 321 Jefferson. And you can see the photograph of the building as it sits now. This is a site plan showing the setbacks. The building is the one with the X, the box with the X towards the middle of the frame, so it sits right behind 321, that rear wall. And that is all I have.
Joe, you have anything to add to this? What
No,
she
I
said?
just want to keep the building, use it for storage, and eventually redo the fence. You can see the fence line there in the picture. I want to clean that up and put new fencing in, and eventually scoot the building towards the back line of the property line, where the existing partial fence that's still there, I want to redo that fence line and then close that as like a beer garden eventually, and put the building to the back, move it to the back end of the property. But we really need that for storage.
Okay. So I got a couple of things then, based on what you just said. So one, why did you already put it in without getting approval for putting the building in place?
Oh, I had no idea there was an approval needed, being that it's not a permanent structure.
Okay.
There's nothing permanent about it. It was
right.
brought in on a truck and
Yeah.
set in place.
Okay. And then second, to what you're wanting to do, just make sure, the biggest things are one is before you replace the fence, make sure you get, the proper approvals, because if you're replacing like in kind, you may not need to come in front of the board, but you certainly still have to do approvals. Second would be make sure you're looking at your setbacks, and make sure the building is appropriate to the setbacks that you have to have. So just in case with that, you might have to go in front of the planning commission.
Okay.
That too.
Okay. Yeah.
So, any questions, comments from the board?
Would he need to wants to move that to the back,
Yes,
I didn't see that.
so you would need to come
Okay.
before the board again. And to springboard off of what Josh said, any building, infill building, whether it be like your building or actually constructed on site, needs an application for certificate of approval.
Okay.
Going forward. So-
Okay, sure, definitely.
And might have just said before it's done. I mean, that's obvious what you said, but
Yeah,
Joe, when was the building brought in?
I'm gonna say probably August of 2020,
August of 20, so it's been there for some time.
couple of years, yeah. Almost 2 years.
Does this building have electricity?
No,
Does it have a gas line running in there?
it was originally going to, but it does not.
Does it have plumbing?
No,
Is it on a foundation?
no.
So it really is temporary.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was brought in, it was a pre-manufactured building it brought it in on a truck. It's on skids. There's no blocking underneath of it or anything. It's literally on its own, runners. Yeah.
What is, Brooke, what is the penalty for not getting a permit?
our ordinance states fines can range up to $2,500 per day, each day being a separate offense.
Yeah, we're pretty serious about getting permits.
Yeah, I had no idea being that
And,
it wasn't a permanent building. I definitely would have if I'd known about that.
Well, the other thing is, it may be sitting, and I don't know what the building code is in the city, but it may be sitting too close to your other building. You may have to have a separation from that, especially on a storage building, because you could be storing stuff in there. If that catches fire, it could burn down that whole block. So, I mean, it's a very important situation to make sure that you've got the proper distance. And I guess I would ask to make sure that we've got the proper distancing from the existing structure, because that is a wood structure, correct?
Yes.
So, and what do you store in there?
Just dry storage, to-go containers, glassware, just anything extra that we are not using for the restaurant.
Well, anything such as propane tanks or lawnmowers
no.
or anything like
No,
that
nothing.
could set that off and be a very serious situation. So that's why we're very
Yeah.
concerned about, and that's why we want to know what you're putting
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in your
Yeah,
building. So-
nothing flammable, no accelerants or anything like that. The only actual gas that we have is CO2 tanks, and those are in the basement of the building itself, the main building.
There's reasons why we have permits.
Yeah, sure.
And it's even though it's a temporary building, you've got over 300 square feet of storage back there that you use. So at least that's and I wasn't great in math in school, so forgive me if my numbers are wrong, but we're very concerned about that. And these old buildings have the old timbers in them, and if you were around when the courthouse caught fire, they put it out about 8 times before they got it out because it kept
Right.
catching fire. So
Yeah.
we're very serious about that. And it's pretty serious when you put a structure in that's too close to another building, and especially one that can be flammable, which that could be.
Okay.
So would he need to get a building permit? I mean, it's already built, obviously, but would the building inspector come and look at things like setback and,
We would check setbacks, but since it's a temporary structure, there's not a need for a building permit because it's under a certain square footage.
I'm sorry, what was the last?
Because it's under a certain square
I
footage.
see, okay.
So you guys will take as a action item maybe to look at the setbacks, just make sure, because I can't remember from planning commission what the setbacks are. I just
It's
don't-
3 foot downtown
Is it 3 foot on them?
off of property lines, and then as far as
I was thinking
fire
property
separation, I'd have to check with the building inspector.
That's what I mean from the building, actually, so, okay.
But you can make, if you choose to approve this, you could make that part of the motion.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, Any questions, comments from the audience? All right, hearing none. Mike, you want to
Sure.
go through findings of fact?
Findings of fact, new construction, infill buildings, since this is a temporary buildings. Again, the bullet points here really don't apply to this, other than the fact that you do need to get your setbacks checked, as well as making sure that before you do another one, and if you move it again, we know what you're doing.
Right.
And I think that's the most important thing. And as far as being compatible, I think you're behind your building. You've got fencing around it. You're going to redo your fence, which I think would be a great idea. Help screen a little bit, because a lot of people use that alley, as you know, walking back and forth to Main Street. So,
Yeah.
so it'd be great to do that, so, from that standpoint. But I think as far as, the main thing is you didn't check with City Hall before you put it in. That's the main
Yeah.
finding of fact we have here.
Yeah, and I just didn't, I honestly assumed, and I apologize for that in anything with a pre-built structure like that has runners, it's not a permanent foundation. I really didn't think, I honestly didn't know. So, but I will in the future. I definitely will in the
Appreciate
future.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add. I think you covered it pretty well.
All right, Sandy?
No, other than that, he does comply with number 7 as far as it's setting in the back of the building.
Okay. Carol? Can you turn your microphone on? You'll have to say it loud enough so that we get it on record.
Sorry, it's my first day.
It's all right.
Can you turn it on for me?
It's just there you go. It's
It's
red.
on. See the red light?
Yes.
Right there, and then when you tap it, it'll go off.
I kept hitting the wrong button.
You're all right.
And what are you asking?
Do you do you agree or disagree with Mike's?
I agree,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Tom?
I agree, for the same reasons. Also, I would just like to note that if you do move it, you'll need to file a new application with the Historic District Board. And also, then I guess if he needs a work permit, he would have to get that as well. Or does he not need one because it's a infill temporary building, even if he moves it?
As Nicole stated, because it's under a certain square footage, a building permit is not necessary.
Okay, so just your application to the Historic Board of Review.
And I too will agree for the same reasons as Tom has mentioned as well. So with that, accept a motion.
Based on the preceding findings of facts, I move the Madison Historic District Board Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Joe Breek,
Yes, sir.
Breek, got it right, for his property at 312 Jefferson for the temporary structure. Also including the fact he needs to get his setbacks checked with the building inspector, and that if he decides to move that building, he will need to reapply for another historic board permit to move it.
Can you verify 321 instead of 312?
It's 321.
Yeah, 321
I'm a
Jefferson.
little dyslexic. 321, 321,
Footage is 312.
321 Jefferson Street, yes.
321 Jefferson Street.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second?
Bert?
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve?
Mike Pittman,
Approve?
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carol Ann Rogers,
Approve.
and Josh Wilbur.
Approve. So Joe, you'll get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail, so you already obviously have it in, but this will actually make it, formal.
Okay.
So, and then everything else that we've already mentioned today, but
Yeah.
appreciate you understanding,
Oh,
what
sure,
we're trying to
sure.
say and what
Yep.
what we've done, so, and, good luck in the future with it.
Awesome. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Joe. Appreciate it.
We also appreciate your restaurant.
Yes.
Very much, very much. All right, our second application is 130 Mulberry Street. Do we have? Anybody representing 130 Mulberry Street?
Mr. Cooper, Mr. Winters.
So we'll go into the next application. If not, then our next application then is 613 Walnut Street.
Wayne Stein, representing RJO Properties.
Bob, can you state your address real quick?
Sorry?
Can you state your address for us?
My address is
Yes.
523 Walnut.
All right, good deal. Just hold on right there for a second, and then we'll have Brooke go, and then have you speak after that. All right? Brooke,
This property is a circa 1855 federal contributing zoned historic district residential. The COA request is to rebuild the top porch gallery railings and replace any rotted wood on the porch structure. You can see current pictures of the gallery porch. And this photo is the inspiration photo of what the railings and columns will look like upon completion. And that is all I have.
okay, all right, Bob, sorry. No,
We purchased the property in December. It was in pretty sad shape. We were fortunate enough to get a roof on it pretty quick. A new roof on the house, a new roof on the garage. We had to clean it out, and that took 15 loads of a little bit of everything. We've replaced floors, and now we're to the point of working on the porch on the outside. That's very similar to what we would like to do, but we don't have an outside, there will be no outside stairway, okay?
oh, there will
That
not.
stairway, that's
Okay,
not.
I thought you might be putting one in based
No,
on
no,
your
no,
inspiration.
No outside stairway.
Okay.
The stairway is inside.
Okay.
Okay, that's the way it's always been.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to the medical office building over here, there is a picture of it back in the 1800s. It was a saloon,
Oh, really?
okay? And
Well,
when
that's
I was
pretty
growing
neat.
up, it was the Shipley family, and they grew up there.
I did not know.
The reason we bought it, we own 611, so it has a common wall between 611 and 613. I remember the people who bought it from Shipley's, and they passed away, and then their daughter had it, and it's kind of been in decline for a number of years. It also had old cars out back, which she got rid of when we purchased it. So, we've got a lot more work to do on the inside, but I'd like to get the porch done.
Can you even walk on that porch?
ASAP.
Because it doesn't look
Pardon
like
me?
it's, can you walk on the porch? Because it doesn't look safe.
I won't get out there.
Okay, it doesn't
not
look safe to
getting
me,
out
but,
The guys that cleaned it out did, but I'm not getting there. They're a bunch of young guys. I'm not getting out there.
all
No
right,
way,
okay,
okay?
understand.
But we are proposing to do it with all pressure-treated lumber,
Okay,
because I like maintenance-free.
yeah,
Very similar to that, except for, except for the stairway.
okay. Are your columns gonna look just like that too, or are you gonna kind of put back kind of decorative type columns
It's
like you?
on, it may be on the bid, I didn't bring it with me. He's either gonna put, I think they're 6x6s, I know they're expensive.
Anything's expensive right now,
Pardon
it seems
me?
like. I said, most material's expensive right now, it seems like.
And then I don't know if you can see in that picture, but there
Yeah.
are metal supports underneath the porch
Yeah.
coming out of the wall. We're gonna keep those.
Okay,
And if those floor joists coming through the wall are still in good shape, we're gonna try to keep those. We hope we can,
yeah,
because if not, then that's gonna be more expense.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's in pretty sad shape.
yeah.
Are you going to use,
Good.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those posts that, thank you.
Here you go.
The posts that are leaning up against in the corner, you're gonna
I
try
can't
to
hear
reuse those posts that are in the picture?
The posts there, I wasn't gonna use them. I'm gonna replace them with the pressure treated, with the treated lumber.
Okay.
And those are not pressure treated.
And then the railing is also gonna be the pressure-treated lumber that you're gonna put?
I don't remember what kind of railing was on it. The porch was all wood, but I cannot really tell you what was there before.
Treated wood
Oh, yeah, everything's gonna be pressure treated, yeah.
That's what the receipt you had just said it would be redone with wood, but it didn't specify.
It's all gonna be all wood,
Pressure
yeah, all pressure treated wood. Just like the porch that was in that picture. That picture is in the 400 block of Walnut. It's right,
The inspiration one,
Yes.
yeah.
okay. It's on the 400 block of Walnut, that's an apartment building. If you know where the OVO office is, it's directly across the street. That was built last summer, I believe. Guys did a good job. And I'm sure that wasn't cheap either. But unfortunately, the prices have really gone up. In fact, I don't know whether my contractor's gonna be able to, come in with those same numbers or not. It's a possibility they could be more expensive.
How tall will your railing be?
Pardon me?
How tall will your railing be?
Well, I'd like for it to be at least 3 foot. I mean, I don't want somebody falling off of there.
Yeah.
Aren't there specifications for how?
I believe so. Isn't it 36 inches code?
36
Yeah,
inches is
It
good.
would be at least 36 inches.
Yeah.
I believe that's what that is.
And then how long is the porch itself? Do you, off the top of your head, you remember?
How long?
Yeah,
Our porch, the porch is 613.
that you're rebuilding.
It's on that, I'm sorry, I didn't bring my bid sheet with me.
It's at a 5 by 30.
30 feet? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Given that the building is federal style, it would be nice if you could make your porch railing federal style. Now, what was up there was turned wood. That would be of a later style. You're getting rid of that. So, I mean, federal style is even simpler than that. This, to me, looks kind of contemporary. I mean, I think it would go better with the architecture of the building if you would it's just little details, like a little capital, a little finial around the bottom of just,
It doesn't cost too much.
no, it wouldn't cost, my point is that it costs
I know
hardly
what you're
anything and
saying.
it would be consistent
They
with.
did it at a house about 2 doors from there. They put that up there and they painted it. I don't want to paint, but I understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
And they did same thing down on West Main Street where the fire was.
Yeah, oh, you're just gonna leave it bare.
It just depends on cost. I mean, this,
It's on the side.
I think it's like $8,000 or $9,000 is the cost estimated now to put this porch back. It could go higher. I'm trying to.
I mean, I think you
trying
can
to do this.
paint pressure-treated
I don't
lumber.
know how much it's gonna cost once we get inside. I'm gonna have to replumb, I'm gonna have to do all electric. We've already placed, the 2 front rooms and floors. We got the floor tore out in your kitchen. It's almost like a money pit. So I wanna try to keep this as reasonable as possible in, getting this accomplished. I'll take a look at it, but I can't guarantee that I could do that.
Okay, well, of course, painting pressure-treated makes it last even longer.
Yeah, but then you gotta paint again. I don't like painting.
We usually like the columns and railings and, to be painted to blend in with the historic structure.
Paint them?
Yes.
I don't like painting. Once you paint, you gotta keep on painting. And the house next door, that picture doesn't show it, but the house next door at 611, we tried our best to get the paint off the brick. It didn't work too good, so we're gonna try to do some more this year. And then I've got to, cut the mortar and retuck it. But, I've decided on the 613 Walnut to have Roger Lorick, who lives across the street, paint the place. Because I believe trying to do peel away on that would be really expensive. I've done that, I don't wanna do it anymore. I've done it, personally done it, and I don't wanna do it anymore. It's nasty.
We just bought some paint today on a painting project we're working on, $70 a gallon.
So with this application, the only thing we're concerned with right now is just the porch, right? We're just, nothing else on the house.
Everything else we're doing was on the inside.
Okay.
Okay? The only thing that's done on the outside, and I forgot to mention, in that one side picture, those two pine trees are gone.
Yeah, but that's,
I took those out.
we don't.
Well, I mean, that opens it up.
Yeah, oh yeah, I definitely. Any questions or concerns from the audience? All right, hearing none. Owen, you want to take findings of fact?
Okay. Okay, so, let's see here. It says, historic porches visible from the street. This is visible from the street or from a public right-of-way. Should be retained, but you're saying yours is pretty much dilapidated, has to be rebuilt. But sounds like you are.
Like I said, that I'll keep the rods.
Right.
And I'll try to keep the floor joists. The rest of it's just not worth keeping.
Right, so you're trying to keep what's keepable. So
Correct.
that's consistent with the guidelines, okay. Okay, you're not talking about screening it in. Says you should use materials and styles that are compatible with the building, which is why I was suggesting you just add a little capital and a finial to each of those columns. Cost almost
I'll-
nothing.
I'll see what my contractor can come up with.
Okay. And, yeah, the photographic evidence that we have is not useful really because it was not federal style. It was clearly a porch that was rebuilt. Those it was sort of an X shaped
But
what
it
was in
gives
there
you
before.
an idea of what we're trying to
Yeah.
accomplish.
Yeah, so that was not really proper to begin with, what you're taking off anyway. Okay, details should be retained, but there really aren't any details. Okay, so wood porches should, let's see, what's appropriate here? Okay, doesn't seem like any of those really apply. Wood is an approved material, and that's what you're planning on using, is 100% wood. So that's consistent with the guidelines. Okay, so it seems to me that your proposal is consistent with the guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy?
I agree with, I agree with the findings.
Karen?
I agree.
Tom?
I agree for the same reasons.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons, and I think the style that you're using will greatly enhance the house. I'm not too worried about the going back to, yeah, I'm not too worried about you going back to the federal
We're
style.
trying to
Yeah,
improve the neighborhood.
you're doing a good job. Thank you, Bob.
I too agree with Owen. So that, I'll accept a motion.
Okay, based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to RJL Properties for the proposed porch located at 613 Walnut Street.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Brooke?
Do we want to add anything about the columns and, or the capitals and bases, Owen? Are you okay with that?
I guess I'm okay.
Okay.
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approved.
Carolyn Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
All right, with that, you will get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail. You can begin construction as long as you got the building permits. and- Yeah, but thank you very much for taking on this project. Thank you very much. All right, we'll go to the next application. The next application is at 313 West Third Street.
I'm Melanie Harrell, and I'm here to represent 313 West Third.
Can you state your address,
My physical
Yes.
address where we're living now is 888 South Rogers Road in Lexington, Indiana.
All right, thank you. Brooke?
This home is a circa 1850 gable front. It is a contributing structure, zoned historic district residential. The original COA request was to infill the standard door on the east side of the garage, remove wood infill on east and build wall with salvaged brick to restore original brick facade appearance. But the application has been modified, and so the applicant has requested to also install galvanized metal siding on the top roof line portion of the garage, as well as to change in the height and pitch of the roof system on the primary home. So you can see pictures of what the garage looked like prior to work commencing. This was during project work to restore the brick facade. This image shows the door has been infilled and the brick facade has gone up. Elevations showing what, which doors will be where once the infill has been completed. These are some more photos showing after the brickwork and infill had been completed. And then these photos show where you see the wood trim along the eaves in the soffits. That's where the galvanized metal sheeting would go. This is an image of the corrugated metal that would be applied to the upper facade of the garage, and specifications for that sheet metal. And then this would be the other modifications to the application. When the new roof was put on, it was raised slightly by about 5 inches with new posts and beams, which also slightly changed the pitch when that was done. And that is all I have. I think this picture shows, let's see, a little bit better of, or was the other one a little bit better for you?
Has the roof already been done?
The roof was worked on and already started. The building inspector, or the individual who offers permits, came down and talked with the contractor to determine what was allowable or not allowable, and permission was gone ahead and given to change that at the time. I was not aware that that was a necessary change here.
I can speak to that. It was determined that the porch originally wasn't visible from a street or an alley. We missed a public alley off to the side where I believe this picture kind of shows a viewpoint, which is why we asked her to amend the application to include it.
So a city official gave them permission to go ahead
Yes.
and
then it
change the
was-
roof line.
And then it was determined after the fact that it was visible from a public right of way.
And are we talking about this roof line or the garage?
We're talking about the house.
Permit, I mean, the city official saying go ahead.
It's the side porch, yeah. Or the side rear porch, I
It's
guess.
the porch of the house.
It's the porch that is on the rear end of the house. It faces the back.
Right.
We've had this kind of a situation before where there's been a building permit issued without getting a C of A, so it sort of means, why do they even need a C of A? They already got their building permit, this is just, why are we doing this?
Is there a process in place that would require the building inspector to ensure that there is a COA in place before they issue a work permit?
We're trying right now to clarify that review process. When we switched to iWork, we're using it to try to improve our processes. So we have added where Brooke or I need to sign off on all building permits downtown to make sure it doesn't miss this process. This one is just one, we're all human, some things
Yeah.
may slip.
Thank you.
Hi, Melanie.
Hello.
This is Mike Pittman. I live 2 doors down from where this project's occurring. I can tell you that they have worked their little tails off getting that roof and that porch set up because they've taken away about how many truckloads of rotten wood off of that. The porch was not set up right, unfortunately, and a lot of wood rot occurred. So they've had at least three loads, big dump loads of wood taken out of that. And we didn't talk about this.
No.
But I saw this, and I also, even before I knew they were coming before the board, I sent Brooke an email saying, look at this wonderful success story, they're restoring this garage, which I think is wonderful what they're doing. I've lived in, we bought our house in 1996, and watched the steady decline of that property, and they're really bringing it back to life, and I'm very pleased with what they're doing. So I would heartily support what they're saying to do. Now, I don't know if that board's probably not aware of this, but one of the people who live on our street said that house had 2 stories at one time, and the second story was taken off. So I don't know if you're gonna change that roof on the regular house or not, so you're gonna leave it the same.
No, it's gonna remain the same.
Remain the same,
The
okay.
roof on the actual house was replaced within the last few years, I wanna say maybe 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Before we purchased the property, which was just this past February.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, we don't have to replace that roof.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the porch, we were hoping to maintain the wood there, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when they got up to it, it was rotted or termite infested all the way up to the shingle on the roof area, on the actual porch. So that had to be taken off, as you said, and replaced with more wood.
You're doing a nice job.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
I have a question. Would you consider using a different material from the roof down to the brick other than galvanized, corrugated galvanized metal?
We have looked at a few different options, and honestly, that one will weather with time and show kind of an aged appearance, so that it will kind of blend with the historic area. It is actually one of the less expensive options at this point, considering the considerable amount that we're also putting into the rest of the property. Just something has to be cut here or there to make everything work.
Did you consider, or would you consider like weatherboard or shingles or board and batten? And also, how far down are you coming from the?
It is very small. It looks to be maybe 1 foot to 2 foot, and it's angled, like on the edges there. On that bottom left picture, you'll see there on the, underneath the wires where the lines are running, that's, a very small area. So it might be 2 or 3 inches at that end. And then it just graduates up a little bit underneath that plywood.
So the metal, if I'm hearing you correctly, will then angle down?
Can I step
Yeah,
there?
go ahead.
Yeah,
one more time?
absolutely.
Okay. It's hard to explain. But for instance, this is the one that faces the alley.
Mm-hmm.
And so right up in here, there's just a very small area of the wood that's on the inside of the building. And it will just come, like right over here is where the tip is. This is brick all the way up until that area there. So if I didn't get up there to measure anything, I'm gonna say ideally no more than 2 feet on this end, probably closer to 6 inches or less on this end.
Okay.
And then it would just be trimmed out. The area that's gonna be the largest, and the same on the back here, it's very thin there underneath of the area.
So the brick line goes straight across.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very small area, just like the front there, just where that trim is, where they can't angle the brick up. The largest area that you would actually see is actually just facing our house,
Oh.
which is right here around the windows.
So there wouldn't be any on the side facing the alley?
No, I don't know what this thing is for. I have no idea what that is. You guys know it.
Could be a vent.
But other than that, that's the only little piece of wood there. I have no idea where it is.
Looks like it could be a vent.
It could have been a vent for a stove
Yep.
at some point.
There are two stoves in there on opposite sides, but they may have had it there at one point.
You mentioned you were gonna, that the metal will be trimmed out, so will it be like within a frame?
Yes, they would use like the trim that would be used for the metal itself.
Okay.
It would be trimmed out, so it doesn't appear unfinished like it does now.
Any other questions? Any questions, concerns from the audience? All right, hearing none. Sandy, you get to do your first findings of fact.
Okay. Well, just, I guess I'd like to state just first, and I'm sure you're already aware of this, but just from back from the ordinance, is that you need to get permission for, to come before the board for the certificate of appropriateness before the work's done. This one, the door's already been taken out and everything's done, and I think it looks better than it did before. It's just the point of, why are we doing this if we don't do it? I mean, why waste our time?
Seems like half the
I
time,
mean-
they're asking for forgiveness
It's
instead of permission.
And it's like, okay with that if that's how we're gonna do it, but,
Yeah.
so that's the first thing, is, I mean, it's part of the ordinance, it's required before permit, anything that's visible in the historic district, if it's a conspicuous change on the exterior, and it seems, other than color, and this seems like that, so. The other is, on these, remove the door, number one, I don't think we need to go through,
You don't have to go, you just, which parts do you believe, meet or do not meet findings of fact?
and I think it meets the fact that, well, they're trying to preserve it and have done that with the, replacing the brick. So I guess one, they are preserving the brick face, staying in the original location, and the doors, we don't know yet what you're gonna do with that garage door, but so far you're keeping the one, and the one door was.
It will be
It was
replaced.
not historically,
Right, it will be replaced at some point. That's on a
Accurate,
separate
and it was a
application that will
room
be
door.
turned in
It'll be on a
once
separate
we have the
application.
visuals on that.
Got smaller on you, sorry.
yeah, to be approved, yeah. I don't, on this one, the synthetic or substitute materials, I'm not, I guess the galvanized metal sheeting doesn't seem to me appropriate for a historic building, even though it's only going to be in certain things, if it could be done, and that does not meet that.
All right, and then, this is the roof, for the porch on
Porch.
the house.
Again, it's almost retained,
Just change the pitch.
change the pitch, though.
All right. Caroline,
I have no comment.
do you agree with Sandy's assessment?
Oh. It's hard to know that was an assessment, wasn't it?
That's all right.
That wasn't exactly what I was. Eventually. I agree to an extent, but I don't understand the corrugated metal either. I don't know, it was originally maybe a plywood of sorts, was it? Is that what it looks like?
That's what it is now.
That's what it is now?
I don't know in previous sixties what was on the wall.
That's the only thing that really stuck out to me, was that it was, if you were talking about a roof, it would be a little different, but for a siding, even if it's a graduated siding, it seems like that's not the proper material for it. But I don't know exactly what would have been. That building's been standing for a long time. It could have been changed out a half a dozen times
Right.
from what it originally was.
At some point, I've read on documents that Brooke maybe had, or I've had in the deeds that maybe the garage was built in like 1901, possibly. Does that ring a bell to you, Brooke, maybe?
I'm gonna double check that before I confirm or not. But I do believe that's about right.
Okay.
Likely it was.
Yeah. All right. Tom?
Yeah, I agree for the same reasons. I think that there would be a better use of materials if you would consider weatherboard or shingles or board and batten at the top. I don't believe that the galvanized metal is appropriate for this building. But other than that, I mean, I think the work that you've done on the house and the garage is good, and it follows our guidelines.
Mike?
I really don't have a problem with the corrugated metal. I walk those alleys a lot, and I think it's a big improvement over the plywood. The plywood looked like a Band-Aid that was put on there a long time ago. In fact, the garage behind the Costigan house is corrugated metal. The entire roof of that is corrugated metal. You gotta look, but it is. It's been painted so many times. So I think if it was 1901,
I actually have it. So the survey listed as a circa 1910 wood
1910.
frame garage
okay,
with vertical board siding and a gabled roof.
okay.
So,
I think the vertical board siding probably rotted out and they slapped some plywood over it. It's what it would look like to me. And I think that corrugated metal will last a lot longer and give you a lot better service than wood, especially with the moisture we've got back there. So I agree for the same reasons with that additional comment.
Owen?
Well, it's not a gabled roof, and it's not, I mean, that thing has changed so much since 1910. You know, the roof line's totally different. It's not wood anymore, now it's brick. So to me, it seems like there's very little of the historic structure that's even left. It's been changed a lot. The main square footage of the corrugated metal is facing your house, which is not really visible from public right-of-way. So to me, the thing has been changed so different from how it must have looked historically, that adding just a very small amount of corrugated metal, which is not approved, in the historic district for a roof, but this is not for a roof, this is for siding. So to me, I think it's such a minor thing, I'm not willing to say no to it.
I agree with Owen and what he stated, but I will say this, somebody said, that felt like this fit the guidelines. Everything but doing the project prior to fits the guidelines. I don't want to belabor the point, but I do want to make the point, so, because this is a public meeting, and certainly we do have these guidelines in place for a reason. I think, with what Mike said, you guys are doing great work on that building. It's not far from my house either, because Mike's very close to me. And so I think it's good what you're doing, and I think these are good projects. I just think it just needs to, there's steps to make sure that we just are all on, in lockstep together, working together, but I certainly agree with Owen. Accept a motion now.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to John and Melanie Harrell for the proposed already completed infill of a standard door on the east side of their garage with salvaged brick to restore the original facade, and to include galvanized metal siding to be installed on the top of the roof line portion of the garage, extending 1 to 2 feet from the roof downward, and the rebuilding of the rear porch. Do we need to also include that, the rear porch? That is already completed. I guess we approve that as well, since it's done.
Do you have a second?
Oh, I didn't say
Oh,
it, 313
that's right,
West
sorry.
Third Street.
My fault, Tom, I'm sorry. Should've-
I would second it.
Okay.
I would,
Brooke?
Mike Pittman,
Approve?
Carolyn Rogers,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
approved.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
and Josh Wilbur.
Approved. You will get your COA in the mail. You can begin or finish work, as long as you get all your permits and so forth. So thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I do want to make sure I tell both Brooke and Nicole, obviously it's disheartening a little bit that the city official made the decision to do this. I get it. We're human and mistakes do get made. But I think if that occurs down the road, maybe we get some upfront knowledge of that before we get into a meeting and hear it, so we're not necessarily so surprised as a board. All right, our next application is 313 East 4th Street.
I'm Rebecca Combs, and I reside at that property.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Brooke?
This structure is a circa 1870 Holland Parlor contributing structure zoned historic district residential. The COA request is to install an 8x10 accessory building in the rear yard of home. You can see what the yard looked like prior without a building. The site plan showing where it would have been, it was going to be situated. And then this is an image of the actual building that has already been installed. And that is all I have.
Rebecca, you want to add anything? You probably know what we're going to say, don't you? So tell me how this happened before you got to this point. It's okay to be honest. Things have happened, so please, we're not going to crucify you.
Okay. I went to the office here and picked up the green paperwork, which, I thought was a permit to put the shed in. And so I went to order the shed and, scheduled delivery, and I was putting some blinds up. I put the paper in the window. I was told to put the paper in the window, so I did that. And when I took the paper down, I saw there was a meeting, and so I was like, I think I was supposed to come to this meeting before I put the shed up, so it was kind of already in place. And so I went ahead with the delivery because I didn't want it to get pushed back further than it already was. And plus I had a lot of items out in the yard that needed to be put in some kind of a building.
And this is purely a temporary structure. It's not connected to electrical, plumbing, not on a foundation or anything.
No, it isn't.
Okay. Looks like it's sitting just on wood slats. Is that correct?
What's the material that it's made of?
Plywood.
The siding is made of what?
It's like a plywood.
Is it the hardy board? It kind of looks like the hardy board.
Yes, it is.
The hardy board, yeah. And is it asphalt on top, or is it metal?
It's metal.
Metal.
I think your application also said that you would confirm the size of it, that you weren't quite sure when you filed the application. Is it the 8x10 that you originally,
No.
what size is it?
It's 10 by 12.
Okay.
The place where I bought the shed didn't have an 8 by 10, and they didn't anticipate having any, they didn't have plans to build any, so that was my next choice.
Didn't I read vinyl somewhere in
You
the
did.
application?
Yeah, but
That is on the brochure that the applicant gave us to include with the application.
There's no vinyl
With no vinyl,
except for
okay.
maybe the vent.
yeah.
But it is wood.
Yeah, it's the hardy
Hardy.
board
Hardy
and
board.
probably
Yeah.
wood on the inside frame.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Any questions, concerns from the audience? All right, hearing none. Carol, you get to take us through findings of fact on this. You look excited. Well, remember, so we're just gonna look at the findings of fact and go through what you believe fits or does not fit the application. You believe that it fits the guidelines or does not fit the guidelines, based on
Okay.
what they've got.
Okay, then, we're talking about the inconformance?
Yep.
Okay. Because of where it's located, it's in conformance, and it's set back from the alley. The project, at first, it had said that it was vinyl, but now we have agreed that it's hardy board. And I believe in that case, then it would be in conformance with the guidelines as well. I have no, I don't know what else I need to add to that, I'm sorry.
And these are based upon the residential guidelines on pages 69 through 71.
They are.
Yep, good deal. Excellent. Do you have anything else to add, Carolina?
Okay, sorry,
Do you have anything else to add for your findings of fact?
I do not.
Okay. Tom?
I agree for the same reasons. And I think, the fact that you've located the building behind your house and set it back follows our guidelines as well. Guideline number 3 on page 69 to 71.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons, but again, I also would caution you on, be careful what you store in there. Because if at summertime it gets pretty hot and you don't want to put a lawnmower or gas grill in there because it tends to explode. So don't be doing that.
That's what's in there.
You better get it out. Because believe it or not, on a 90-degree day, a storage building get up to 130 to 140 degrees very quickly, especially if it has no ventilation. And those don't have very good ventilation. So I would recommend you think about that before you put that kind of thing in there.
I will.
You might want to check with the fire marshal on that zoning too, on that, because Nicole, those may have to be further set back than a regular structure next to a home, especially if they store things in it like that.
So it might want to be in the motion to have the fire marshal take a look? Or building inspector? Okay. Owen?
I agree for the same reasons.
And I too agree for the same reasons. Certainly, I didn't want to have you come up. You've already heard, many people, hearing today that not do things ahead of time. And I do, definitely want to just reiterate that, please in the future, if you got something exterior wise, before you do something, although you got things that you need to get done, and I totally understand that, please make sure you go through the process, so that we don't have to talk through that part when it's a little bit easier time and meeting. So, all right, with that, accept the motion.
I have a comment.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
Sorry. I know that picture showed that there was like awnings on that house. There are no awnings on that house.
Awnings. On your house?
On your house?
Yeah, there's no awnings on that
Yeah.
house.
Okay.
So I don't want you to think that
That you
I-
put awnings up and didn't come before us, okay.
Well, I didn't want you to think I took them down.
Or
and
took 'em
didn't
down,
ask for
okay.
permission. Yeah, those
Okay.
that there are none.
All right. Thank you. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Well, first of all, let me ask, did we decide if we're going to have the fire marshal check in?
Or the building inspector, one of the
Okay.
two,
Okay.
if you'd like to add that to the motion.
Yep. Okay. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Rebecca Combs for the proposed 10 by 12 wood and asphalt shingle accessory building to be located.
It's metal roof.
Oh, metal, okay. Wood and metal roof. accessory building to be located at the rear of the home following all setbacks, located at 313 East Fourth Street, and subject, however, to the conditions of checking with the building inspector or fire marshal to find out what can be safely stored in the building throughout the summer months.
All right, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Okay. Brooke?
Glenn McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Josh Wilbur,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve.
Carol Ann Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
All right, Rebecca, you'll get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail, so that'll make the decision obviously formal. And you should expect that either the fire marshal or building inspector will come out at some point to take a look
Okay.
and talk with you. All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll go back to an application that we had earlier to see if we had someone show up at 130 Mulberry Street.
I spoke with the applicant. They will not be representing the application tonight. They're aware that that makes their application incomplete and will be reviewed on the next agenda.
As long as we make a motion to move it, right?
No, it's
Do we-
deemed incomplete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because representation is required as part of their
So
application.
it automatically will move to next
So it
month?
automatically
Okay.
goes to the next meeting.
All right. All right, so now we will move to any new business. Is there any new business from anyone? It's only old business. All right, hearing none, we'll go to old business.
We have our newest copy of design guidelines available for public comment. They are on the city's website, as well as a copy is available here for review at City Hall. It's several pages due to the combination of the two residential and commercial current guidelines. So if the board wants to offer any comments, I will take those and then pass them along to our consultant team. And then we'll probably, should go ahead and probably open the floor for public comments also after the board, if you wanna do
Today?
that. Yeah, just in case there's anyone here that wanna already offer public comments, since it is on your agenda. I have planned, dedicated more time for the next meeting to take public comments.
Yeah, because I didn't expect to do that today. I kind of expected just, because they just came out. I don't think it's really given people a whole lot of time to
never know.
review and look at those to, provide a whole lot of comment just yet.
Yeah.
Nicole, what is the timeline or timeframe for getting all public comments
Let
in?
me pull that up. So we did, we were originally supposed to have everything done, based on our grant before June. Because of the timetable that it took National Park Service to approve grants, they've offered all awardees from 2021 to get extensions on their timelines. So we took advantage of that because our original timeline would have required a special hearing by the historic board, as well as not much public comments, and we didn't want to do that. So our grant extension was approved by DNR. We're waiting for the official documentation, but now we anticipate having the hearing for approval at your July meeting, so we can take public comments all the way up probably till the week before that, because we want to give design team enough time to make edits. But so in the timetable, I believe I gave that to the board last meeting, but I can send out a copy too. We have first draft for public comment to the board tonight. So if anyone wants to make public comments, they can. But like I said, I had anticipated more opening the floor for public comments at your June meeting.
I've got a couple comments there.
You assume somebody would.
Page 69, I guess my my position is the guidelines are guidelines. And, for example, about halfway down in the first paragraph, it says galvanized standing seams with large ridge, da-da-da-da-da, are not appropriate in a historic district. I think that's our role as a board to determine what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. I don't think the guidelines, I think it should say may not be appropriate. I mean, there's some pretty strong language. And, for example, vinyl and vinyl-clad windows do not accurately resemble historic windows and are not approvable. Well, we've approved them. So, I mean, I think it should say may not be approvable. I think from that standpoint, it gives the board some flexibility. Shutters, vinyl shutters do not accurately duplicate the appearance of wood and are not approvable, should be, may not be approvable. So, I mean, from my standpoint, and there's several examples like that, just a few I pulled out, but I would like to see the consultants take a look at it and say, you know, that's what we're here for. Owen and I love to spar back and forth with Tom, and we like to talk about what's approvable, what's not approvable, what's appropriate, not appropriate. And I think that's a very healthy discussion to have. And I think it's something we should, as far as guidelines, have the flexibility and again, reflect the fact that we would like to see the historic materials preserved, but it may or may not be approvable. Plus, there's a lot of new materials coming out that may be approvable. So from that standpoint, the board has to have that flexibility, I believe.
And we currently have a committee that will be looking at those materials.
That's correct.
Right. That's true.
And
So
just for, I agree with, I mean, as far as the flexibility, but it also seems to me that when you're rewriting the guidelines, the clearer you can be and the more specific for not just the board, but the people who should be looking at them before they do the work, to make it as clear as we can make it for them.
So, we received this copy, this draft of the guidelines, and one option is we could just vote to accept it exactly as it is. I doubt we'll do that. We'll probably have some suggestions, like we just did, on changes. But shouldn't we have a meeting where we all bring our changes that we would like to see, and then it would be, I would hope, more formal, where you suggest it, everyone considers it, and either votes it up or down, and then we go to the next person with their suggestions. Is that how we are planning on proceeding?
We can, it's completely up to the board. We could do a special meeting, to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing that, but I'd like to do it after, if we do that after the June meeting here, I'd like to hear with the public. And, you know, if we're gonna utilize the June meeting to really listen to the public, I'd like to listen to the public first. And then maybe in July, you know, have a, you know, cause, well, now, you said July will be kind of a first official approval. Is that what you're wanting?
So on the
That's a pretty tight
on the
timeline.
schedule that was approved by DNR, we have your adoption hearing being your July meeting.
Is there flexibility in it?
On this timeline, it's tight anyway, just because it does require ordinance amendment, so it takes 3 readings by council. So that's a month and a half, and then we have to give for DNR, the final submission has to include the printed document. So we have to give the printer time to print everything.
Right.
So that takes time, and we
Okay.
only have till October is when our extension.
All right, so I would say we'd have a special meeting then in July. And then, you know, then our July meeting, obviously, we'd still have to, I assume, we'd have to open it up for public comments at that point before we would actually make a recommendation as a
Yep.
board. Okay.
Up to the meeting, Nicole? Up to the day of the meeting?
For recommendations or public comments, you would have to open the floor for public comments before you would vote.
Right,
On
even
those.
during the meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll work on that, Brooke. We'll work on getting a date set in July that will work for the board, and then, of course, during that period of time, you know, public can be there to listen. But at that point in time, it would be the board talking and discussing. The June meeting will be open to the public, for the public to come and provide their comments on the design guidelines during our meeting. All right, any other questions about design guidelines? Any other old business? All right, hearing none, we'll go to staff meeting or staff notes and report.
And so our May Fast Track applications, we had Madtown Liquors at 814 East Second Street, received a denied COA to install a chain link fence with barbed wire strands at the top. Kathy Taylor,
Where were they installing that?
it was going to be primarily behind the building, but the fence would have come out and been visible on the side, for a few feet. And so, because of that visibility, and non-conformance to guidelines, they received a denied COA. They were given the opportunity to amend the application, resubmit. They decided not to do that, at this time.
Okay.
So Kathy Taylor at 1010 West Main Street received approval to remove a 6x6 square post on the front porch and replace them with a more architecturally appropriate 6-inch turned spindle post and add a gingerbread similar to the 1924 historic photo. Kim Kidwell Lytle at 314 and a half West Main Street received approval to install a temporary 4-foot by 8-foot wooden sign. It will be leaning up against the building for up to 30 days, so this does fall under the temporary sign ordinance. And then the 2021 COA review. Randall Cole at 1205 West Main Street received approval to replace wood windows with vinyl windows. That has not been started. Vildan Meredith at 724 Saddle Tree Lane received approval to install a metal carport. That likewise has not been started. So those two would be expired at this time.
Have they
Jerry-
been, are they gonna be notified then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Jerry and Bonnie Owens at 1209 West Main Street received a denied COA to demolish the garage, but an approved COA to rebuild a garage to the exact size and specifications as the historic garage. The denied COA for demolition, it's a standing violation. It was a violation when they came to the original meeting because the demo was done prior to the application and the hearing. The approved COA for the rebuild, a new structure was put up, but it violates the terms of the COA because it does not match the specifications of the COA, nor does it match the submitted building plans that were submitted as part of the building permit process.
And so what are we doing?
So a violation letter has been sent. I have asked Devin Sharp to send a letter to the applicants about that violation of the COA and the building permit.
Okay, so Devin is sending a letter, will be sending a letter.
Yes.
Okay.
The next would be Howard and Lisa Cutshaw at 907 to 09 West Second Street. The COA was a denied COA for demolition, and windows, but an approved COA to rebuild the 16 by 10 addition to the rear of each side, along with a deck. So the denied COA for demolition and windows, the demolition, again, violation had already been done by the time it came to the board. The windows, they did not change the windows out, so they did comply with the denied COA on that. On the approved COA, they have rebuilt the rear deck, addition and decks.
Okay.
Judith Kaler at 613 Mulberry Street received a COA to build a 21 by 22 carport at the west side of the property. This carport would have a fire-rated common wall with the garage at 615 Mulberry. That has been done. Lindsay Clark at 818 West Second Street received a denied COA to demolish the rear addition. Again, another violation because the demolition was done prior to the meeting and the denied COA issuance. Karen Modisette at 745 West Main Street received a COA to install a 10 by 10 or 10 by 12 wood outbuilding at the rear property. Again, another expired COA that has not been started. And then Matt Finley and Brian Martin received a COA for 615 Mulberry Street to rebuild a rear addition and add a covered deck, build a new garage, remove the door on the south elevation, and replace window with matching windows on the same side. That has been started, with some pieces being completed.
The one on 18 West Second was a letter sent out also in regards to that? Since the
Yes.
demolition, okay.
Yes, there was a violation letter issued on that back last year,
Yeah.
prior to that application coming to the board.
Brooke, these expired applications, are any of them due to material shortages or an inability to get supplies or anything like that? Because I know we've extended some applications and some permits.
So the one at 1205 West Main Street, the applicant, Mr. Cole, no longer resides at that home. And if you remember, last year, his sister was his representative. Since he was no longer residing at the home, and it was grant-funded application,
Okay.
they decided since the home was going to be on the market,
Sure.
the new owner could decide what to do at that point.
Okay.
Vildon Meredith, same thing, is no longer residing at that property, so it made the decision not to install the carport.
Okay.
And then Karen Modisette, I do need to confirm with her on that, but I believe it had to do with, last time she and I spoke regarding this, because the cost of materials went up significantly, you know, I know that was a consideration that she was looking at.
Yeah, I think we need to be flexible, especially with material costs, and we had to drive to Louisville to get a couple gallons of paint today, because there's no paint in Madison that would work, so, I mean, there's, some of this stuff's pretty scarce.
So the board can vote to extend,
Yeah.
if you would like, but
Normally, the
no
applicant
request has
has
been made.
requested, right?
as of yet, for that.
I would let them know they can make that request,
Okay.
so that they you know, I mean, I think we need to be somewhat flexible in this situation we currently have.
And we did talk about that, but that's been about 2.5 weeks ago, and we were supposed to get back in contact, and we just keep missing each other, so
Okay, appreciate
I
it.
will get back in touch with her.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions for Brooke? All right, hearing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Excuse me, wait, before you do
Yep.
that, I just have a question, and maybe it's later. It was on, I'm backtracking, but on the application that we didn't review, this considered incomplete,
Yeah,
and then we'll review that
Next
next
month.
month if they come or
if
they
they're
don't.
here, yeah, if they're not, then at that point in time, we could consider it, consider the application done, and they'd have to reapply, right?
Well, this is one
I
of
would
those
have to
situations
confer
where
with our
the
legal
work
counsel
was
on that.
already done, and I guess there was some concern about the architectural, structure that had been removed, that I thought maybe we could find it.
So,
30 days
since it
later,
is
they, you know,
being
where is it?
moved to next month, can they add that to their application? Since that's going to probably be an issue?
I did add that to the application when I noticed that,
Yeah.
because that part of the project, the removal of the decorative barge board, was done after a discussion with the applicant about the need for COA approval. It was done several days after that discussion. And the applicant had turned in the application for the roof only at that point, with the understanding of what the process was, and that COA approval was needed for any notable changes, any conspicuous changes. And that was done, like I said, several days after that conversation and after the application was filed. So I did amend the application to include that when I noticed that violation. And a violation letter was also issued for that as well.
Did you say that they removed the barge board
The contractor did, yes.
and threw it away?
I don't know. I don't know what was,
I
what.
can't imagine
they
why
did
you would do that. Well, I can't imagine.
So we're watching that project
Yes.
closely. Okay.
I mean, it's completed now,
Completed,
but
yeah.
It's just done, yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking, will he ever come back?
Well, I mean,
That was, I guess,
have
I'm
to-
not really
yeah.
will you, but what.
then we
do
would,
if
we
he
will,
doesn't
we
was-
will,
that's my question.
get legal counsel involved.
That was really what I wanted to know.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? It's all right.
Sorry.
All right, so I'll accept the motion to adjourn. Now, sorry.
Oh.
You want to make the motion?
Yeah, sure. I move to adjourn the Monday, May 23rd, 2022 Historic District Board of Review meeting.
All right, do you have a second?
I would second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.